This is the Sales Babble Podcast, episode 211, Why You're Not Closing Sales, a solo episode.
Welcome to Sales Babble, the podcast that shares selling secrets for non-sellers. And now your host, Pat Helmers.
Hello, Sales Babblers. This is Pat Helmers. And today I'd like to talk about something that is uncomfortable. It's troubling. In fact, to be totally honest, this is a very discouraging topic. Because when this kind of thing happens, you lose faith and you lose confidence. And that optimism that you have when you started just drains away. This is something I know you've all experienced. And it's something that I've experienced many times in my life. And even though it happens, even though that's happened in the past, and you see it happening again, you're just like surprised and shocked because you can't get your hands around it. You can't get your arms around it. And it seems like you've done everything right. Like you've dotted all the I's and you've dotted all the T's. You followed the process. You've been the good worker. And you followed the process. And you've battled hard with good heart. But still, you can't win. And what I'm talking about is the sideways deal. Right? This is the deal where you've met with the client, the prospect, a number of times. And they're shaking their heads up and down. They're going, oh, yeah, Pat, I really like what you got here. Yeah, this makes a lot of sense. And you're going, great. Yet they never, ever buy. As a loyal Sales Babble listener, you know that the trick is to be asking lots of questions and to kind of digging into what their problems are. And you've done that. You've discovered somehow that they have a problem that your product and your solution can solve. And they seem interested enough, right? They even ask you for a quote, and you give it to them, and they say, yeah, I need to think about this. I need to run this by some people. And then you maybe call them, and you call them up a few days later, right, like you're supposed to, and they say, yeah, we're still thinking about it. And you're like, well, when would be a good time to get back to you? Well, how about 2 weeks? I'm like, well, that sounds good. And you call them, and they don't answer. You leave a voicemail. You send an email saying that I left a voicemail. Is there any other information that you need? Is there anything else you need to know? And it's nothing but crickets. And you have no idea what the heck's going on. And when that happens, you just start inventing stories, right? No, they don't like the product or the service, or they don't trust the company, or maybe I did it wrong. Maybe I said something wrong. Maybe it's all about me. Oh, they don't like me. Maybe I shouldn't really be in this business. Maybe I should just quit. And that deal is sitting in your CRM. And you've told the boss about this. Like, yeah, this is looking pretty good. I've talked to these people a number of times. It sounds like they're going to go along. But each day, the likelihood of this deal ever closing becomes smaller and smaller and smaller. It was a 70% deal. Then it was a 65%. Then it was a 60%. And every day it goes down a percent. 49, 48, 47. And you know what's got to happen? Eventually, this thing's going to be worthless. And how are you going to explain that? And you're grieving because of your loss, as if a dear old friend had passed away. The thing is this, which is the whole point of what I want to talk about in this episode, is that you never had that deal. It was never a viable opportunity. Those customers aren't going to buy, at least not now. And the problem is that you can't close them, in that you just don't know all the witty things to get them to say absolutely, and they open up their checkbook and they write it for you. That's not the issue. Closing is not your issue. The issue happened a long time before. Like, I'm reminded of the story, right? You've heard this story, right? For the want of a nail, the war was lost, right? For the want of a nail, a horseshoe was lost. For the loss of a horseshoe, a horse was lost. For the loss of a horse, the battle was lost, right? For the loss of the battle, the war was lost, all for the want of a nail. Something like that. I'm paraphrasing it. That's exactly what's happened with this sideways deal. You know, let's go to the Wayback Machine, right? One of those Saturday cartoon things. Let's go back to the past and take a look what was going on. And we think it all started with that cold call. And you call them up and say, hey, you got a problem like this? And they go, sure. And you said, well, would you be interested in having a demonstration on that? And they go, sure, right? And you start, you're the good salesperson, right? And you start probing them, start asking them questions. And they say, yeah, we've got this problem. And man, you hit on that hot, like flies on, well, when they say sugar. And you see, because they got that problem, you know that the product or service that you have that they could benefit from that. And you hop on that. And they're nodding their heads up and down. And you just start walking through the benefits of your product. And next thing you know, you're on the pitch. And they're going, yeah, I can see that. This looks pretty good. You know, and you keep probing more into that little thing in there, and they tell you all about it. And you're writing all this down in the CRM. Oh, yeah, they got this problem. They got this. Or maybe they got a desire, right? Not every decision is made on pain, right? There are some decisions made on desires and hopes. But the thing is this. The reason that they're not interested in buying you, even though it sounded like they were interested, is because you probably didn't ask enough questions. You didn't ask the right questions. You didn't enough questions to find out what is really their most pressing problem. You didn't rank all the issues that they have in their lives. Yeah, they may have this problem, but a bigger problem might be they've got to move, or they've got to build a new building, or they got to grow new staff. Or they may have a product line that's really slipping, a schedule that's not going to be met, and their customers are breathing down their necks. And even though this is a nice to have, but it's not a gotta have. What you didn't do, and I don't mean to be too accusational here, because I do this myself. I don't mean to be all on a high horse here, because I do this too sometimes, and I should know better, right? That I didn't dig into those sort questions that I've talked about in past episodes. I'll make sure and put that in the show notes, that link to that. And those sort questions are I didn't really dig into what is their story? How did they get into this business? What's the state of the business now? What's their happily ever after in 5 years? And what are the things that are stopping that happily ever after from happening? What are the obstacles? That's the O of the sort question, right? Because then you can kind of see their whole business and all the issues they have in context. And if you don't dig into those, you can't ask those ramification questions because of this issue, how does that hurt your business? Where they really squirm, and it aches them and it pains them to even share it. Because that's really ideal for you as a seller. You want them to have that emotional feeling. So when you ask the transformation questions, what if I can make that go away? Poof. Then they're gonna be open to listening to what you might have. But you probably didn't do that. You didn't figure out what all their problems are and then rank them. Because this is what's happening. There's a reason. There's one of two reasons why they're not buying now. One is you're just not a high enough priority, which means that it's not time now. It might be time in 6 months or a year. And if you'd have dug into this earlier, you might have said, hey, I'll get back to you in 6 months, instead of wasting all your time demoing stuff and begging them and cajoling them and actually maybe pissing them off, right? Look, I've been there. I've done that. And it's just not a good time for them. It's a good time for you, right? You got a quota to make, right? It's the end of the year, right? It's the end of the quarter, right? You want to make that commission. But it's not the right time for them. That's one thing that's possible. It's not the right time. The second thing is you didn't show them the return on investment. You immediately jumped to the features and talking about the benefits, but you didn't speak in their language. In decision makers' language, it's always the same stuff. Of course, it may depend on your product or business, but it's always the same stuff. It's stuff like, does your thing boost their profits? Does your thing grow their revenue? Does your thing shorten their time, their schedules? Does your thing raise their quality? Does your thing lower their costs? Or does your thing somehow lower their frustration? Because that's the kind of thing that causes staff turnover and attrition. It's usually one of those, somewhere in those things. And if you have not completely and articulately explained that to them, they're not going to maybe connect the dots. And it's not going to bump it up on the rank of all the problems that they have. The other night I was with a friend of mine who's in sales. And we were talking about a company that I used to work for. And he's actually done a sales call on them and talked to their engineers. He sells the technology and got them kind of excited about that. And they would go to the management and they would give a presentation on that. And they would show how they could clearly improve the quality of the products that they make. And the decision maker right off the bat says, I'm not interested. What? And it's because, we're just not interested. And he walked away from it. But this is the truth. What's going on here is their customers don't care about the quality of the products that they're rolling out. The quality of products that they're rolling out to their customers, it's good enough. So why make it better? It's not going to make them any more money. It's not going to grow their revenue. It's not going to grow their profit margins. They just don't care about quality. Remember that whole list I walked through? Some things matter, some things don't in some situations. Things might change in the future, right? And that might be important someday, but it's not now. Which is the next step that I really want to emphasize here, is that even though they're not buying today, the deal isn't necessarily lost. Change takes time. And the market changes. And the competition changes. It gets harder. The technology changes. And disruptive technologies are total game changers, right? As we call them. We got to change out the yin-yang here, right? And people change too. Especially in some companies, it's just nothing but a revolving door. So the manager that you couldn't sell this time, the new gal, the new guy, might be much more interested in. That's why it's incredibly important that you keep following up. Follow up, follow up, follow up. Because that's where possibility lives. That's where hope reigns. Like they say, every dog has its day. You're the dog. Your day may come. But it's not going to come if they don't remember you. And you're not following up with them. And you're not being overly pushy, and you're having more of that attitude of I'm here to help you, help your business. I get this isn't a good time for you. I get that. My job here is not to make your life harder. It's only to make it easier. So while I back off here, when would be good for me to follow up with you? Maybe in 6 months? What do you think? Stay in dialogue with them. That's the thing about these sideways deals. And that's why it's not worth grieving. Because you never had them to begin with. I haven't said this up to now, but really what we're talking about is you have not fully qualified your prospect. That's what I want to talk about today. When you got a sideways deal, recognize you didn't fully qualify them. That's on you. Ask the right questions at the get-go. Make sure that what the problem that you're solving is high on their list, and that you have a great product or service, that can truly benefit their business and their clients, their customers, then you'll be successful. A lot of these topics I've already talked about in the past. So in the show notes at www.salesbabble.com/211, I'm going to make sure and add some links to the SORT method, to the cold calling episodes, and I think you're going to find a lot of value by listening to them. Got a lot of great episodes in the can that I'm excited to share with you. I got Roger Bresch. He's going to talk about the importance of asking questions, which is very applicable to what we talked about here today. I got Barry Zalzman could talk about personality types. He's done an awful lot of sales work on that and how to easily read what kind of person that you're talking to. I got Mike Schultz coming up there. We're going to be talking about a recent study that they just did on why people buy and why they don't. Extremely interesting stuff. Sales is changing immensely. Absolutely immensely. I got a fellow coming on. I haven't even talked to the guy, but I have sent some emails, Todd Capone, and he's writing a very interesting book on how the internet has changed sales, and it's things that used to work don't work anymore, and what's working in the future is people want real relationships with salespeople. It's kind of like the opposite of what you're thinking in that, people just want to point and click like everything's on Amazon. No, complex stuff people aren't going to buy. Complex stuff requires trust and safety and all that kind of thing so that people deeply feel that they're going to get a return on this money that they're spending. So I'm really excited about those new episodes coming up, and I think you're going to love those a lot. If you'd like to learn more about sales, I hardly ever mention this, but I think it's important for you all to know that I do have an online course called Selling with Confidence. If you type into code SALESBABBLE, you can get $50 off the course. It's an online self-paced course called Selling with Confidence. We talk about things like this: cold calling, qualifying, how to find leads, how to give a demonstration, how to close, how to keep yourself organized. All that stuff is in there. It's comprehensive. It tells you everything that you need to know to get good at sales, and it's got my regular perky personality in there, and I do laugh quite a bit in that too. It's all videos, there's handouts and all kinds of things. Does this topic resound with you? Are you a victim of these sideways deals? If so, I'd like to hear from you. Click on the link Babble Me at www.salesbabble.com and share your thoughts on that. Or share it on LinkedIn. I post every week on LinkedIn about the topic. I would love to hear what you folks are thinking about this. That's all I got for now. Until next week, take care and have a highly successful and profitable selling day.
't you for listening to the Sales Babble podcast. Find us at www.salesbabble.com.